Hello, Handful family and Wildkind family. My name is Katrina Pilkington, wellness educator and equity and inclusion advocate. I'm thrilled to be here with you tonight, this afternoon, depending upon your time zone, to join fellow humans in a discussion all about how to be a more anti-racist and inclusive human in the spaces of which you are part of. And I wanted to take a second and just a moment to introduce all of my wonderful guests here with you. But just to give you background on who I am Handful's DBAR coach. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, anti-racism, belonging. It could be one big long acronym, but I work in this space. I have since about 2002. Took a little break from corporate world, came back into doing fitness, and now all of my worlds have collided in this wonderful mix of working towards helping humans connect in a way where we authentically love one another and also are very aware of the issues that marginalized individuals are going through to be better for the future. So enough about me. I want to talk about my guests here with us today so we can dive into some conversation all about how to be more inclusive and aware. I'm going to start just with my screen that I can see, and I'm going to start with Tamika. I'm going to let you go ahead and just introduce yourself, and then I'm going to go through and kind of walk everybody through who's here with us this afternoon.
All righty. Well, my name is Takima. I am owner of... Oh, no, you're fine. My name is Takima. I'm owner of Takima Renee Fitness. I am a certified personal trainer, grief fitness instructor. I am also a co-host of a podcast, The Fit Black Queens. What's up, y'all? And I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. I appreciate you being here, and I'm sorry, I'm terrible with. That's why I always check first, and then I mess it up anyway. So that's our first fight. Zenovia, I know I have that correct. Joining us here as well. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Zenovia Stevens. I am the founder of Black Kids Adventures Incorporated, which is a nonprofit organization designed to pretty much create community and help more Black families get outside and be more adventurous. I am a wife, I am a mom of 3 boys, and I am a freelance blogger. And I am here from Huntsville, Alabama.
Awesome. I was wondering where you were located at, and I'm down here in the South with you in Florida, so.
Oh, okay,
welcome.
Yes.
Welcome. And Rukmini, I'm going to call you Rook so I don't badger any more names for the rest of the evening.
No worries. I'm Rukmini Hallowell, or Rook. I am a senior project manager at a major advertising agency up north in Toronto, Canada. I'm an avid hiker, and I'm promoting diversity and equity on trail. I have a toddler son who's about 1.5 years right now, and you'll catch me on any given weekend meandering down the Bruce Trail. And I'm an amateur mycologist, so I identify mushrooms on the side.
Interesting. I love mushrooms, and I love the superpower of mushrooms for health and immunity. So that's so fun to learn about. Thank you. And Alexis, we've been hanging out all day.
Yes.
I wish I could do your bio for you.
My name is Alexis Reed. I am a wellness, fitness, lifestyle blogger, Flex of Lex. I'm also a co-founder of DMV Fitness Fam. It's an inclusive, diverse group of fitness professionals, influencers, and just enthusiasts in the DC metro area. And with my neighbor across the street, Takima, I also am a co-host of the Fit Black Queens podcast, and I'm located in Maryland in the DC metro area.
We're on the same coast finally, and I know Takima is going to help us eventually learn how to take care of plants because most of mine are fake. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But just to get our conversation started, I know that for me, I'm all about recency and what's been going on the past few weeks, and then I would like to then unpack what's happened in the last almost 1.5 years. Can we do that? And I'll put this out to all of our guests. So how are you feeling? How are you feeling in the past 2 weeks? And everybody should know what I'm talking about as far as the George Floyd murder trial and Derek Chauvin's conviction of guilty on all counts. How are you feeling just in the world right now with everything going on? Anybody can just.
For me, so I didn't expect to be as emotional as I was when they read the verdict. And, I watched it with my sons. And they were just so confused about why I was crying. Because the tears were just literally pouring down my face as they read, the guilty verdict 3 times. But it just felt like, a very small drip of positivity and heading into the right direction. Like a very, very, very small step in, maybe like a glimpse of a better future for my children. Because I worry every single day of what it's going to look like for them. I have times where I'm really concerned, or not concerned, but I'm like, if I had thought about what could happen to my kids, like really truly sat down and thought about what could happen by birthing 3 Black children into this world, I may not have had children. So it gave me like a glimpse of, just hope for their future in that they'll be able to grow organically and not have something happen to them that should never have happened, So it was just like this small little drop of hope for me.
Right. I totally can relate and understand what you're talking about, because I feel like there was hope that the right thing happened, but we have so much left to go. And especially for someone like yourself, the mom of 3 wonderful little kings, to understand that they should just be able to grow up. And I'm sure you've done this, had conversations with them, like I have with some of my family members, about how to handle things when it comes to law enforcement and such. And I don't feel like we should have to do that, but we do right now. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. My kids are 8, 5, and 2, and these are definitely not conversations I ever thought that I would have with them. Or, even going out on, so we hike a lot, going out on a trail and telling them that, yes, you can pick up your stick for a walking stick, but also, this needs to be used as a weapon. If anything occurs out here, this is what you do to defend yourself with this weapon, because of the climate of the world. Me having to think like that. I never thought that I would have those conversations with my kids at such a young age and have these kind of the fears and worries that I carry with me. So yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Anyone else? Like, how are you feeling?
I think, well, when you asked how you're feeling, I had to like really process it, because I think I haven't thought about it. I've just been living, and it's one of those things that things just happen back to back to back to you, like, and you just never have a time to just breathe. And I felt like when the verdict came out, I had a moment to breathe. And then I heard about, I don't want to butcher her name because I'm not good with names. I think her name was Makia Bryant. And I was like, I wasn't able to breathe. I really wasn't like have a moment to exhale and be happy for the verdict that we got some sort of justice. So how am I feeling? I honestly don't know. I feel like I'm always on fight or flight mode, especially being a Black woman who has a daughter, who has brothers, and who always feel like I have to defend myself. And I do have a mouth on me. So I will like always defend myself, but I have to always think to myself, like, maybe this is the time not to do it, or put my feelings aside. But overall, how I'm feeling, I don't know. I do not, I haven't breathed.
Yeah. And you deserve that moment to be able to do that. Right.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share how they're feeling, Alexis?
For me, it's I'm in this weird place. I wear many hats. And for my day job, I'm in marketing. And, we're talking about issuing statements and what do you say and how do you say it? And it's like Takima said, I don't always get a chance to breathe and process it as a person, as a human, as an individual. It's, how are we responding to this? How are we reacting to this? And what is the right way to do it, and what's the wrong way? We saw a lot of examples of the wrong way. And a lot of people who just don't get it. They just don't get why it's upsetting and why it feels personal every time. And so I've been feeling, I don't know, just like sort of floating in the wind. I'm not necessarily thinking about it, not getting the opportunity to think about it. And it's, when I do think about it, it's really hard. I'm not a parent, but I have Black brothers and a Black father and nephews and cousins and uncles and grandfather. And so it impacts me. It impacts my community. It impacts all of our communities, really. So it's kind of I'm in a weird place. I'll say that's my short answer.
That's okay. It's valid. Yeah. What about you, Roop, especially with the little one, that little?
Yeah, well, I'm obviously up in Canada right now, and I am South Indian. I don't identify as Black. However, hearing the news from Canada, you see a lot of rhetoric floating around, like that layer of politics where it's like, well, we're not like the States. We don't have those kinds of problems. And it's so not true. Like Canada is not innocent. And I think sometimes Canadians like to have that mental switch of like, we're different. We don't do that. And so the BLM protests around here have been pretty prolific. And Alexis, like you mentioned, it impacts all of our communities. And, you know, I work also in advertising. And so seeing all of these companies make these statements, and it has to go beyond that, I think, as well, in making tangible change that starts in the workplace, starts in the home, and, you know, extends out into our streets as well.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with all of that. And then to your points of not knowing how you feel, sometimes I've noticed doing this work, I think it was a reason why I left corporate in the first place. I liked the DEI part. I didn't like the corporate part, which is why I went rogue. But something I've had to work on, even with my daughter, now being a mother, is to literally sit down with her every morning and say, okay, what are we feeling today? And she knows that she can put feelings together, whether it's half-sided, you know, happy and excited, or scared or mad or upset, and allowing myself to sit in those feelings, because in order for me to fully give to others, I need to give to me first and foremost. And I don't want any of us to feel guilty for ever having to do that, because how else are we going to show up in the world full if we're always feeling like we're just coming at things half ourselves? So definitely glad that y'all are able to get some of that off your chest. I really want those that are watching with us, whether it's live or after the fact, understand that we are just real people trying to share different experiences, and is an effort to help everyone understand that even though this doesn't directly relate to you, whether you are or aren't of a certain race, ethnicity, identity, whatever the case may be, this does impact you somehow, whether you're a mother, you're not a mother, whatever you work in. And we want this to be something that's empathetically understood in that place. So going along with that, what about in the last year and a half? Do you feel that there's been progress made with fellow humans, perhaps, who have not been understanding what underrepresented or marginalized folks are going through? Do you see a change? Do you feel hope still, or do you think that there's particular things that we can work on? And we can definitely touch on those as we talk.
I'll jump in. I think that is a very loaded question. I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think right now DEI as a whole seems to be like a very hot topic floating around, and you see a lot of companies and brands and organizations sort of, you know, and I'm trying to pick my words appropriately, but sort of hop on that bandwagon a little bit.
Trend.
Yeah, where it feels a little trendy to put DEI in your profile, or to make a post, or, you know, the black tile. But when there's not actions to back that up, to be honest, it doesn't feel hopeful. It feels a little shallow, and it feels sometimes a little for show. And I think that leads to a lot of frustration for a lot of people of color, and a lot of feelings of like resentment and anger. And, you know, not to say that those are all of like the only feelings, but at least from my perspective, sometimes, yeah, like when I see brands, you know, make an Instagram story about how they now have a black face, and like, therefore they're, you know, diverse and equitable. But are you, like, beyond the 6 tiles that you posted in the past 2 years, does that really make you diverse? So I hope to see that change. So I guess I am a little bit hopeful.
You're like,
yeah, just like.
What about you, Zenovia? What about your experiences with your littles, getting outdoors more?
Well, first, I just wanted to say, to the points that, you know, Rukmini, did I say it correctly? Said that she's absolutely right. You know, as far as the companies are concerned, it's really just like this roller coaster of, for me, like really, really high highs, and then, you know, low lows, as far as like, is this authentic? Are you doing this because you really truly care? You're really truly, you know, wanting to get your feet wet and make a change? Or is this just for show? Is this just because, you know, like she said, this is trendy, this is the thing to do? So that is very frustrating, because you really just don't know. You know, it's like a gray area. Like, how do I figure out if this is authentic, if I really should work with this brand, or, you know, if you're using me, using me to generate, you know, sales down the line, because this is what everybody wants to see. So that part has been really, really frustrating. As far as getting out with my kids and seeing a change, I don't know. I think that even with the people around me, it's kind of a similar feeling for me. Like, is it real? You know, like, I know a lot of people in my community I've had like a lot of news media surrounding my blog for whatever reason in the local community. So I have a lot of people that will come up to me and, want to express their concern or what they're doing to make it more inclusive outdoors, but I don't know how genuine and authentic it is because I don't really see it. Like I see it when you come to me and tell me, but I'm not, I don't see what you're doing. So like for me, starting my organization was because I wanted to get out into the community and make a change, not just like, hey, look at my family and let me influence you to do different things by seeing me. It's like, okay, how can I make sure that this is actually happening? So I created the organization so I can get out there and make change. So not saying everyone has to do that, but like, what are you really doing to, work for this change? So, I don't know. I don't know just if what I'm seeing and hearing is authentic, and it's difficult.
It's like, how is it measurable?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do we measure progress when I honestly was not surprised? I have not been surprised. I haven't been surprised in a very long time. Of anything, honestly. I look at things with a different lens just because I've worked in this field for such a long time, to your point, where, I'm doing it solely because I want a better future for my daughter. But I've been doing it for a really long time. We've done diversity before. I've been hired multiple times by different organizations and companies, and I've actually been like sought after and then not even hired by other companies purely because they wanted to say they made an effort, but then don't want to pay a Black woman to come in and do the work that needs to be done. So, I mean, I'm kind of like the two of you where I'm hopeful, but I think in the past year and a half, I've said this before, that people were more captive. We were kind of stuck at home and had to sit and look and pay attention and be close to people in our home. Everything was unfiltered. And for me, maybe people had to pay more attention and take a deeper look at how they were being humans to understand we were not in a post-racial society. That we are not in a post-discrimination society, that to Rook's point, there's tons of issues globally that have been getting progressively worse, especially with this pandemic, that this awareness has to continue in order for us to see progress.
I just wanted to, if I could just jump in, I want to take sort of a rewind back more than a year and a half. Most of my career has been in politics, working for legislators, and, just seeing how language has changed just over the course of my career. I think that people, while it's still uncomfortable for many people, I think it's more not understandable, but it's not as taboo to talk about these issues as they used to be, right? Like you talk about LGBTQIA plus, issues before, and people are like, what does that mean? What are all those letters? Whatever. And now it's just understood, and I think that there's more openness, whether or not people are actually taking the actions like the other panelists have said is another story. But I think the fact that we're actually able to talk and we're able to have a conversation like this is forward progress. I think the action piece is the big piece. We see what's happening in the political landscape in this country and how far, how polarized things have gotten. But I think the fact that people are able to confront these issues, and you're able to confront brands where you weren't before, you can reach out to them on Instagram, on Twitter, and you can say, what does your board look like? Why do your ads look this way? What about this language you're using? What about these models you're using? Whatever it might be. I think we're not allowed, but I think it's just more prevalent now. And I think that's a good thing. And that I think that, like I said, is forward progress.
I agree. Do you think that that's the case, Takima, that we're now like a unified front? Like everybody's like, nah, like we're going to hold you accountable and ask lots of questions that we're all asking at the same time?
Yeah, I will hope so. I do know that there's some influencers or fitness professionals who are just like, at the end of the day, I'll give my money. I don't care what happens. I do know a few people who are like that. But I did want to say something and also give an example that happened to me within the last year and a half. I had a brand reach out to me, and I realized that I will be the token Black person. And I was not down with that. I don't know I spoke to another personal trainer and he was okay. He says, get that money, take that money, girl. You know, he had that mindset, but I realized that I would be the token Black person and I did not feel comfortable with that. And I did ask, like, you know, one, by me being, I think the way they gave it to me was like, hey, you're a dark-skinned Black woman. That's kind of how it was. And it just made me extremely uncomfortable with the whole situation. But I looked at their Instagram recently and they said they did something for George Floyd's verdict. And the next what do we call it? The next post for their Instagram was like the Washington Redskins. And I was like, wait, are you serious? Like, y'all don't see nothing wrong with that. You're saying you're down with Black people and you're here for Black Lives Matter, but you put something that's very offensive to Native Americans. So I agree with Zenovia where it's like the authenticity. I can't even pronounce the word. Yeah, I know what I mean.
Authenticity. I have to clap sometimes.
You go, but clap with it, but I'm not going to say it again because I don't think I can say it. But it's just like, I want brands to be as authentic as they possibly can, especially when they're reaching out to people, and not only for people that look like me, but people who are Native American, Hispanic, or whatever.
Yeah, I totally understand. And I had questions, but I want to make sure that we stay authentic. And I was actually reading this article because I always read tons of articles and try to keep myself in the know every single day. And it basically was something to the effect of allyship is not the goal, or something, what's wrong with allyship, which intrigued me to click on it and read it. And I actually agreed with the article a lot. And basically what the article is stating is, in this world of what we're in right now, like, we're here to talk about how to be a more anti-racist, inclusive human, right? And I feel like a lot of people and organizations will say both, have this goal of being allies. And I teach a workshop that's all about being, using actions to show your allyship instead of trying to look for a title or a label for yourself. Because, you know, to your point, people are saying, oh, well, we're an ally type company. We are allies. We are in this with you. But what if this article is basically saying, what if you're an ally and you're doing all this work to think you're an ally, but you're not actually being empathetic? You have no idea what real marginalized and underrepresented people are going through. And instead of you trying to be a friend, and instead of you really trying to be understanding and empathetic to the cause, you're so busy focusing on doing your little checklist of, I read How to Be an Anti-Racist, check. You know, I read, stamped from the beginning, check. No offense, Ibram, love your books. But what do y'all feel about that notion that allyship can be a bad thing? Do you think it could be a bad thing?
I think that at the end of the day, people need to do a better job of listening. You know, I see this time and time again where people are like, oh yeah, I understand your pain. I get it, because I had this one experience, or I know somebody who knows somebody who had this experience. And it's like, but I'm telling you what I'm experiencing. And, you know, what are you doing with that? Are you listening to me? Are you really listening? Are you really trying to understand? Or like you said, are you just trying to check off a box and say, hey, I have a Black friend. I talked to a Black person today, you know, and I watched a TV show with a Black star. Like, that's not the same. And so I think that really listening, is a big part of this whole conversation.
That's so true. And I encounter that almost every single workshop I teach and do. And I have this slide that I use that basically says what won't work and what will work. And what won't work will be getting defensive and talking before you listen, for sure. Anyone else? What do you feel about this?
And I just want to say, not only just, you know, listening, but also realizing that I don't feel like you have the right to get tired of listening and hearing these stories. I have come across a few people this year who have said things like, you know, I'm just tired of hearing whatever. Well, you know, I'm tired of living it. I'm tired of feeling fearful. Like, I don't feel that you even really have the right to, you know, put that out there. Like, if you're going to think that, keep that to yourself. But, you know, true allyship means that you're in this to feel all the hurt and pain that we're feeling too. So, you know, if you're in it, you're all the way in it. And you have to make that commitment to be all the way in. I'm not going to get tired. Or, you know what? Yes, I am tired, but that means I'm going to work even harder to fight alongside you, to help do whatever we need to do to, you know, move forward together.
Right. and then pass it down if you are a parent or caretaker to the children that are in your care, because it doesn't just stop with one generation. It obviously hasn't worked in how many centuries that we've been at this, for sure. So I totally agree with that, you know, I've gotten that sentiment many times, and I'm like, you know, it's okay to have like a long day, but you know, you can take that hat off, you know, people who have different forms of discrimination, and we can expand that from race to also ableism, you know, different gender identities, can't take that off. You can't take that off. So if you can't take it off, imagine how tired those folks are.
And just to kind of tack on to that, I think the idea of recognizing your privilege is now pretty, I think, ubiquitous. Everyone talks about that. But I think also, like, it goes beyond just like knowing you have privilege, but also understanding what those layers of privilege are. Like you mentioned, like if you have like a neurodiversity, you can't take that hat off at the end of the day. I remember, you know, a couple months back when the news of Trump supporters storming Capitol Hill. And I remember I was following someone on Instagram, and she had posted this thing about, she's like, you know, I heard what's going on in the news, but like, I'm just like, I'm really tired and I don't want to talk about that. So we're just going to like push that to the side today. And I was like, the privilege, like to be able to like take that idea and be like, I'm not going to talk about it today. And it's funny because she, you know, she would, I think, self-describe as someone who's like woke, but like didn't really stop to recognize like the layers of privilege, you know, be it political, race, gender, neurodiversities, ableism. Like there's so many different layers, and you know, it's not like I don't know, it's not a contest of like who's the most oppressed, since no one wins, but being able to recognize that, understand that, and you know, action with that in the back of your mind.
Absolutely. Takima, I was looking at you waiting.
Yeah, I really wish that I can like tack onto all those, but I was just over here like, yes, say it again in the back, you guys. So I just feel like I don't have any ring to it, just a slow clap.
We all do. It's okay. Sometimes, you know, we talk about us being tired. It's okay to be like, you know what that person said, what they said. That's completely okay. But just wanting to transition just a smidge, because we are in this wellness, health, fitness arena, most of us. I mean, for me, it's just sanity, keeping my sanity pretty much. But I want to talk about the topic of feeling safe, right? So when I talk about the word inclusivity, a lot of people think it means belonging. And I'm like, like the word belonging is so subjective. For me, it's about safety, right? For all bodies, shapes, sizes, human dimensions, to be welcome in different spaces, whether it's fitness facilities or outdoor spaces like many of you are in. I'm not in as much. I might run, but a bunch of y'all hike, and I don't do that a lot. Anyway, but when we talk about inclusion, for me, I want to define that as a way of authentically embracing other humans for what makes them most different from you and loving them as a direct result of that difference, not in spite of it, but because of it, and wanting to learn as a form of empathy and education for yourself as a human. So what are some of your takes on how can we make just spaces be more welcoming? And many of you can talk about, I know Zenovia and Rook, you two specifically, about the outdoor space, reasons why I don't go there as much.
Sorry, so you're asking how, like, I guess, like the inclusivity and lack thereof in the outdoor space. So I find outdoor enthusiasts as a whole, and this is in fairness a bit of a sweeping statement, but like to recognize the fact that they're very welcoming and, you know, woke and whatever other words you want to use. But I find that when you're actually like out there, there's so many different layers of othering that happens if you're not wearing the right brands and the right clothes, if your skin color is, you know, a certain color, depending on like, you know, the type of hair you have, you're getting excluded into a lot of things. Like people don't recognize that, you know, your hair texture is going to make a difference of whether or not you want to go on a 6-day canoeing ride. You know what I mean? And then, you know, gender impacts. And then again, you like the parenting level, it has an impact. I know as a woman of color who's also a parent who comes specifically from South Asian heritage, I'm not taken seriously in the outdoor community. It's just, you know, the outdoor community is very much Eurocentric. And I think when most people think of like, you know, what do you think of when you envision a camper or a hiker or someone like that? I think you know, generally draw up an image in your brain, and I don't fit that image. So sometimes I do find that as, I guess, level playing field that the outdoors can be, there's also a lot of barriers and a lot of cultural barriers that exist preventing people from going outside. I think a lot of people know socioeconomic barriers are, a big one. Gear is expensive, getting a car to drive out to the middle of nowhere, accessibility, and then safety too. A lot of people don't feel safe outdoors, and depending on where you live, that's going to change as well, especially depending on your political climate. And I think recognizing those social, cultural, economic barriers and realizing that some people have them and you might not is a big thing, or really impacts how welcoming a space can be, at least from my perspective.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So such a multifaceted question I know I asked, but you answered it beautifully from your perspective. What about yourself, Zenovia?
Yeah, I really disagree with everything that she said. That's really literally like what hit the nail on the head to say. For me, it's just about like those of us that have been traditionally disenfranchised within the community. For me, is creating the community to welcome the other people that are like me, so that we can expand, that feeling of inclusivity. So, when I create this community, my hope is that, together we can maneuver through it and learn whatever it is that we need to learn, so that we can go out and feel good and safe about doing it on our own, but then also to bring others with us so that we can just expand our presence within the community. I think that even just simple, small things like that, make a difference, but it's going to take the people that look like you to kind of have that community. Because I don't want to join a community of hikers and no one looks like me. It doesn't benefit me. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't make me feel like, as much as I want to hike, as much as I love it, and all of the feel goods that I get from doing it, I always feel strange when I'm in situations where I'm the only person that looks like me. So I think that it takes for us to create those communities. And that might be a big ask and a big responsibility to put it on the backs of the few of us that get out there and do it. But I think that that's what's needed to really create that change.
Right. And you're teaching those littles what it looks like to be a leader amidst adversity.
Oh, yeah.
1,000%. And to Rook's point, now knowing that you're in Alabama, I'm in Florida, and I'm just going to keep it real. That's one reason why I really don't go just venturing off.
So I have to say, I actually posted about that this week. And every once in a while I'll talk about it. Like we went to the Bankhead National Forest last week, and it's huge. So, you're always taking a different path to get to a trail. And we turned down this back road, and I immediately started having like almost, an anxiety attack. I'm like looking over to my husband, like, this kind of something, trying to see what is he doing. And he's just driving along. And I'm eventually like, okay, well, maybe we should go back. Like, I'm getting hot. I'm starting to sweat. And I'm trying to stay calm because, my kids were in the back. And my oldest especially, he picks up on all of my feelings and emotions. So it's really important that I kind of, put on a calm face so that he doesn't go crazy. But I'm like freaking out because my mind immediately goes to like, well, what's going to happen? Who's waiting on these back roads? Who's going to see us? Like, this couldn't possibly be, even though I know, but I'm like, it couldn't possibly be down this way, And so we eventually ran into a forest ranger, and I'm to my husband, I'm like, there's a car, like, let's stop and ask him if the GPS is taking us to the right place. And, everything ended well, of course. And honestly, all of my stories do, but that fear, I was letting my audience know that, yes, I post these pictures and I talk about, the places that we visited, but whenever we hit a backcountry road, that is what I go through to get there. Now, I choose to push through, even with me asking my husband, should we turn around?
Right.
When he asks me, well, do you want to? I'm always just kind of like, I don't know. I push through the fear. I push through the fear because at the end of the day, it does bring my family and I, tremendous joy to be out in nature and to go find these beautiful waterfalls and these things that you can only see if you push through. But it is mentally draining to push through those fears. And those fears are strong. And they grab onto you and literally, hold you down. Like, this could be the end. Like, my drive for wanting to be adventurous, my drive for wanting to be outside, this could be the end. That's what it feels like every single time we turn down, a back road. Thankfully, all of our adventures aren't, don't involve us to doing that or whatever. So it's not a constant. And I kind of forget, honestly. I kind of forget until the turn happens, until we're on the road. I'm like, oh, here we go again. Had I known we had to do this, maybe I wouldn't have gone, Yeah. So I understand your fears, in going out in certain places, because you just don't know what's lurking, who's out there, whose house you may end up at, that you should not have, come down this road. And I even said to my husband, I said, if something happens, because service is bad out there, I'm like, who would even know where to find us on this back road if something happens out here, I don't really have I don't have anything to say as far as how do you get out of that. It's just, for me, it's a choice to push through it, as long as I have my husband, who is the calm to my, anxious and I don't know if I can do this. Like, he keeps me grounded. And then, I carry a weapon. And then, like I said, we talk to the kids about, like, hey, if something goes down, we all have to, we all have to, fight. We all have to fight if something goes down. So that's really just it.
I mean, you're a collective too, which is part of my thing. I make sure I'm never alone per se, but I think there's that dichotomy of, yes, your fear is valid. And, that's why we have so much work to do, but also so is your need to be free. Like that is your ability to go out and enjoy that moment of joy with your family, because that's how you feel that difference in yourself. So it's that weird, like, okay, where do we stand in the middle? And I know that the other two of you, like pointing to you on my Zoom file, y'all two decided to try to hike more in the past year. And I was like,
yeah. Alexis and I, we have a goal to do 50 new hikes in 2020. I was going to say 2020, 2021.
It's an extension.
We don't count that. It's 2020. So we're trying to do 50 new hikes. That's new trails to us. And I just want to say, like, how grateful I am to find a community and create a community of people who like to do the things I like to do. I am a city girl. I'm from Los Angeles, California, stand up. And my first experience with nature was when it was like a weekend with the church at Big Bear. And it was my first time ever seeing stars. And I was a freshman in high school. And I didn't know that we had stars. I heard about it, but the way our fog, I was going to say fog, but the way our area is in LA, you don't see that. And when I moved to Maryland, it was the same thing. I wanted to do it, but I kept hearing Black people don't do that. Like, Black people don't hike, Black people don't swim. And I didn't think that I was adding to that. I didn't think that I was adding to that until I turned 30 and realized I'm an adult and I'm going to do everything I want to do. But I'm going to live the life I want to live. And I met Alexis and I was like, you like to do the same things I like to do? Let's do this. And it's so good to have a friend to read a map for you. I never even learned how to do that. But just a friend to teach you new things and stuff like that, because I've never felt safe in this world. Never. And I was talking to my therapist about this, and she said, like, she was a woman who kind of was like, you can create your own safety. And I was like, I'm a Black woman in America. It's different for me than it is for you, but I've never felt safe in this world. But I've never thought about bringing bringing something to protect me on my hikes or my trail runs. So as Zenovia was saying, I said, oh, I need a knife. Give me some links, y'all.
Yes, please. Yeah. I mean, look, I even have to say this. We went caving recently, and they do this ceremony. It's called, like, lights out, where they turn off the lights. And when I took some ladies a couple of weeks ago, I reached over to one. So going in, I let her know. I said, I always have my knife, because I don't trust anybody 100%. But when they do the lights out ceremony, and it's not even necessarily the people that I'm with, I don't know who else may be in there. Like, nobody else is supposed to be in there, but I don't know. So I let her know. I said, when those lights go out, my knife comes out. Like, I don't play. Like, I'm always going to do something to feel an extra layer of protection. Like, I'm going to do these things, but I'm also going to do what I need to do to feel safe. Right. Like, I have to get out.
Right. I do that on my runs. So, I mean, I prefer to run indoors. I just like my treadmill. It's just easy. It's right there. But if I do go on, I do feel like sometimes people have to realize how marginalized folks feel going out into the outdoors and going out and doing things, and how much energy and stress that takes sometimes just to prepare yourself to, like, because I have one of those knives, it's actually a bracelet. I'll have to send you the link. It's like a bracelet, it looks like a safety bracelet, but it's a knife. So yeah, but like just having to remember to put that on, put my ID bracelet on, I'm like, I'm just gonna get on the treadmill, you know, and not everybody has access to workout equipment or movement equipment in their home. So to y'all's point, everybody does deserve to feel included and safe in these spaces, because outdoors are free. Well, besides the equipment that Ruth did mention, but you know, that should be something that everybody should be entitled to do, is just step outside and feel safe and go outside and move for their own health and liberation.
I just wanted to add, so the reason we started DMV Fitness Fam was actually, we started it with going to different studio classes. So we would go to different studios around the DC metro area, because we often didn't see people who looked like ourselves. And we're like, we're going to go and we're going to take a group of people and we're going to go to a cycle class, or we're going to go to a Pilates class, or whatever. And it was about introducing our community to fitness in just a different way that was more accessible, more friendly. And then we decided, let's try to do a group hike. Let's just see how it goes. And it turned out that those were the most popular events we did. Our very first hike, it was amazing. It was beautiful. There were all of these people, mostly people of color there, early in the morning, ready to hike this mountain in our area. And a lot of people had never hiked before. And they said, I always wanted to, but I never felt like there was somebody to show me how to do it. And our rule is always that we don't leave anybody behind. You know, we have different paces. We'll stop if somebody needs to stop and take a break. We'll stop and take a break with them. You know, we don't leave anybody behind. We want everybody to feel safe. And people really loved it. And it made it so that now, because we've taken a break during all of this with getting together, now people are like, when are we going to hike again? You know, they're so excited. And these are people who never hiked before. And it just
hooked up.
Yeah. And it feels great to be able to, you know, sort of bring the outdoors to our community in a way that they could connect with. But I will say it's funny, because we go out on these hikes and we have large group, and it's mostly Black people. I'll just say it's mostly Black people. And people stop and they're like, what are you guys? What is this group? You know, they're like, we're not used to seeing faces like this out in the woods. Like, what's going on here? And there shouldn't be this, like, why are those people in the woods? That shouldn't be the reaction, but we still get it from people who probably don't realize that they're even doing that, you know. But it still happens. And I hope one day that doesn't happen. But for now, it does still happen, which is why it feels good to be able to have that community, so we all feel safe, and that strength in numbers.
Right. Yeah, and it shouldn't be a thing, but it is a thing. Go ahead, Brooke. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. It's actually, it's funny. We all sort of had a similar theme that all of us have talked about, which has been about like knowledge transfer and knowledge share. And I find that like ethnic communities as a whole tend to be, we're very like oral in our traditions. We like talk to one another. We share recipes. We tend to be in groups, and, you know, one, that's for safety, but two, that's also for a lot of knowledge share. And I think one of the biggest hindrances with outdoors, like another barrier that exists, is that lack of knowledge. Like Tamika mentioned that, you know, she hadn't seen the stars until she was a teenager. And I was the same way. Like I'd never been in a canoe. I had never been hiking, backpacking, nothing until I was in my 20s. And a big part of that was my parents couldn't afford to send me to Girl Guides or Scouts or Brownies or, you know, whatever it's called in your country. But you know, so as an adult, I felt like I had to figure that all out on my own. And it felt like knowledge that was held by, you know, just by white people. And I didn't know how to break in. I didn't know how to like share in that knowledge. And I think like one of the best things that we can do for our own communities, you know, what Zenovia does already, which is like sharing knowledge with our own and with our communities and with other communities as well. But, you know, that idea of like lifting each other up, like we can only all get on the same plane when we start sharing that information. And, you know, gatekeeping the outdoors is like on its own, like fundamentally so wrong. I mean, gatekeeping as a whole is wrong, but like especially the outdoors, which is like universally for everyone.
Mhm.
But like so much of that knowledge is held by, you know, one group of people, or if it is held by that one group of people, you won't get to see that diversity in any regard. And so,
Mhm.
like, you know, I just thought it was interesting that we all sort of brought up that knowledge piece separately.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, to Alexis's point too, like it shouldn't be a thing. I know for me, like moving to Florida, the first thing I actually did was look for a Black Girls Run group. I was hoping to have Tony, the original founder of Black Girls Run, on with us tonight, but she is occupied. But you know, one thing she and I talked about was just looking for that group of belonging. And it's okay to have your in group, and it's okay to have an out group. But for folks of color, we do tend to seek out one another as a place of safety, as a place of collective unity, especially in spaces of which we're not typically a part of. When you call it a melting pot, it's really not. So I know even for me coming down or moving to Florida from the most liberal of states, California, coming back home to Florida, I immediately went online, was looking for Black Girls Run, and I like caught myself doing that because that's honestly probably the only way I'm going to go and run in a group. But you know, that's something for us to think about. If for those that are watching, for anybody of color, it's looking for that community, looking for that sense of unity. And then for those that are trying to make it a more inclusive space, if you have a boutique fitness studio or a facility or a community, understanding that you want to step back and learn and listen from those of us who are going through these experiences, to know that there is a real issue, and that this goes, for me, it goes beyond just doing the movement and getting out there and running, hiking, walking, whatever. It's taking back our health from systems that don't want to see us be healthy. For me, that's why I'm in school for nutrition. It's why I care so much about fitness. It's because I'm going to take care of me. Because if I don't take care of me, I don't really trust the system that's put in place to take care of me. I've watched it with my parents. I'm actually a Black and Chinese woman, so I've seen it on both ends of the spectrum. Losing my father last year to a plethora of different diseases that are definitely embedded in the DNA of Black people. I think that people need to see this as a bigger thing than just wanting us, or us wanting to be in fitness spaces. We want to be healthy, and we want to be healthy in a way where we're not fighting to be healthy. We're being healthy as a way of us taking back and liberating ourselves from our oppressive history that didn't want that. So it's bigger than just health and fitness. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I was listening to this lecture. It was a yoga lecture. I teach yoga, and I like to learn and, you know, and hear from other yoga teachers. And there was a woman who was saying that, you know, I'm trying to make my studio more inclusive. You know, we don't get a lot of Black students. Like, how do I attract Black students? Do I do trap yoga? Do I do hip hop yoga? And someone said, I just want to practice yoga like everyone else. You don't have to specialize it, because we're not a monolith. I don't even like trap music, you know? So people have to understand we're all people.
Right.
But
Unique people.
it's your job to make everyone feel included. You shouldn't be trying to paint, you know, people with a broad brush and say, you know, if I do this, then they're going to like me and they're going to come to my studio, because that's not true. And it goes back to listening. You know,
that's so
why
true.
why aren't they attracted to your studio?
Right.
I have a tip. If you want more Black people or people of color to come to your studio, be authentic. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make that face when you said trap yoga. I love a good trap yoga, but it's like, don't do that. Don't think that you're going to reach out to me by doing the music I like. I don't like that. Be authentic. Be yourself. That's all I'm saying.
I think I've taught a lot of workshops to fitness professionals and also studio owners about being objective. You cannot be subjective and think that we are all one type of person, or looking at people, even looking at us as far as not a community, but individually, and just being very assumptory and assuming that because somebody looks like something, talks like something, is something, has this dimension of their DNA, that they are this thing. You have to kind of really work on not just implicit bias, the cookie cutter version, but doing bias work within yourself to understand, I need to really get to know people on a human level individually, so that I don't make assumptions and I get to know people and what they're really truly going through. And like, to my point about allyship versus friendship, getting to that level of empathetic understanding to where I care about what they care about, to the point where I now feel it and I'm going to fight for it, to Zenovia's point, like, because we can't keep doing this by ourselves. And one of the last things I wanted to comment on, because I just looked at the clock and I was like, oh, time's going by so fast. I just want to hang out. We can get some wine, keep this going. Cancel culture popped in my head as I was talking to Tony, the human I just mentioned. Do you believe in the ability for folks to make mistakes? What does that look like for you?
I think that people are going to make mistakes, especially as people are learning. It's how they react to those mistakes. That's a big piece of this. If they are defensive, if they get aggressive, if they double down, triple down on it. Takima and I were actually talking about this earlier. You know, if someone is confronted with something they've said or something they've done, and their reaction is like, you're wrong, I'm right, and this is how it is, then they should be canceled. That's how I feel about it. Like, you're canceled. Okay. But I think as people are learning and as people are trying, you know, we have to grant some grace in recognizing that everybody's not going to get there right away. And that people have lived their entire lives thinking one way and being blind to their own privileges, their own biases. And so I think that there is some, you know, there's going to be some growing pains. I don't think we can go around canceling everybody, especially if we want people to understand, if we want people to support various causes and issues and really just understand. I think we have to grant some grace, but I think that there are some people who aren't even trying, and they should definitely be canceled.
Point taken.
I agree. Oh, sorry.
No, it's Zenovia, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you know, to me, you know, making a mistake means that you are, in most cases, it means that you're working towards some kind of a goal, right? You're trying to do something hopefully positive, you know, and you made this mistake along the way. So I definitely don't agree with just canceling everyone out, you know, but it's those ones that repeatedly come up making that same mistake that, of course, you know, like, bye, you know what I mean? But yeah, a mistake to me shows that you're open and willing, hopefully, to grow and learn from that mistake and go forward and, you know, be a better human. I mean, you know, we can all take something from someone's mistake, especially when it happens on the main stage, right? Like, not only should they be learning, but it should be, you know, a whole audience of people that take something from that and are better from the mistake that they made in the public.
Love that.
Yeah, adding on to that, I think, again, this is like a bit of a multifaceted question that has another layered answer. But one, I think understanding, or I guess having like a bit of an introspective lens as well, a little bit, like understanding context and like how something's being said, was the intent to hurt or to harm? Obviously, you know, like that, come on, like that's canceled. But also I think, you know, everyone has made mistakes, and, you know, we've all been there. We all grew up through the 90s and early 2000s. Like, I'm sure we've all said things and done things that are no longer acceptable anymore now. You know, just go watch an episode of Friends, like that did not age well. So, you know, I think just having the mentality of wanting to grow, wanting to learn, but also recognizing that it's not anyone's job to educate you. So much of it is educate your damn self. Like, it's not my job to do that for you, and it's not anyone else's job to do that. And if you're willing and open to learn, then yeah, like I'm all for learning and rehabilitating and not outright canceling, but also like understanding context and intention. I think it's a bit daft to right off the jump read something without really recognizing what the intent was behind it. And also like age, right? Like, are we looking at something that was said or done 15 years ago when there was like different rules? And I'm not saying that makes it okay, but being able to recognize the context and being open and willing to change is, for me anyways, is something that I'm very receptive to.
Yes, for sure.
So I do want to add on to that. In the year 2020 and 2021, I gave myself one word, and both of the years were grace. I needed to learn how to allow myself grace and allow grace for others. But I think that LeVar Burton said it perfectly. Recently, I think he was on The View or something, and he was like, I don't consider it as cancel culture is more like consequence culture. And there's sometimes that people do need to suffer the consequences. Okay, I cannot speak tonight.
We do need wine.
Like, I need to talk like this in order to get it.
Yes. And wine.
But
I like that.
But I don't think that, like, I don't believe in cancel culture because I never want to be canceled. I have said some horrible things in my day. And I think what Ruck said it like perfectly, like the time, right? I was watching Bringing Down the House with my 13-year-old daughter, and she's like, "You thought this was funny?" Like, it's like certain things that I did in the past and that I watched that other people have done. I wouldn't think about canceling them, and I wouldn't want someone to cancel me. So allow myself grace in the things that has and other people grace. But like you guys said, sometimes if you keep doing it, you got to suffer the consequences. I'm done. You're canceled. Side note, Alexis cancels me once a week, y'all. In some way, shape, or form, she cancels me.
That's a friend. I mean, as you can see, you're still friends, and people have to understand that cancel doesn't mean that you get voted off the island completely. Sometimes. Exactly. And sorry, some of us didn't grow up beyond the 90s.
Exactly.
I really love what you said though about like consequence culture. Like, I feel like that is the perfect way to sum it up, where, you know, it's not necessarily about like you're canceled, you're done, your career's over, but like recognize that there's going to be consequences and be open and receptive to that, because when you're not, that's when shit gets canceled.
Exactly. And it was LeVar Burton. I mean, Reading Rainbow, homeboy did it the best, but like, I really honestly think that that's the way that I'm going to live my life from the here on out, is give other people grace, learn how to allow myself grace, and just realize that people have to suffer the consequences. And sometimes that person will be me. I mean, unfortunately, I do say some things wrong sometimes.
No, that's so true, because go ahead, Alexis.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, you know, here in the States, people say like, I have my First Amendment rights. Like, I can say what I want to say. And it's like, yeah, but like you said, there's consequences to what you're saying, and you need to think what you're saying before you say it out loud. Just because you said it and just because you have the right to say it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be comfortable with what you said and that there's no consequence. That's
absolutely. I say that about parenting. You know, one thing I've always learned through all the books and things I've read is I can't remove consequences for my daughter. She's going to go through life. And as much as I want to go, I mean, if she's going to try to jump off something crazy, yeah, I'm going to stop her. But I mean, like, if she needs to learn a lesson, or like, you know, today at swim, she was swimming with the instructor, and I saw her kind of go under, and he had her, but I was still nervous. But I kept remembering, I can't take this consequence from her, because that's how she's going to learn. And we have to think about that even for grown folks. You can't take away the consequences, and you're going to be stuck with them. And I definitely live by the Maya Angelou quote that I talk about all the time: do the best you can until you know better. Once you know better, you do better. And if you know better and you choose not to do better, you reap the consequences of either people not talking to you, not responding to you, messing up your business, which we've seen a lot in the past year and a half. So that's something that folks have to think about, is you have to choose and be intentional with what you do, because the impact of your intentions can be bigger than you can even imagine. But I know I don't want to take up all of y'all's evening, even though we could hang out here and have happy hour. I just want to say thank you so much to all of my wonderful humans who came here and joined me on this, I don't want to say panel, because it's more of like a chat.